Without any further ado, I'm very proud to announce my good friend, Cris Lacko. We met 2 years ago in France. We're both professional arm wrestlers. He's much bigger and stronger than me, obviously. And it's really cool. When we met in France, we had an immediate connection, very similar to Glenn McNeil and I's relationship. You kind of look at somebody and you just know, and we know. One tidbit about Cris. 2 years ago, when he was competing in France for the International Federation of Arm Wrestling World Championships, he came second in one of his weight categories. And drug testing is very strict in this tournament we go to. And similar to the Olympics, they call it the Arm Wrestling Olympics. And the guy that came first, he failed his drug test. So 2 years later, Cris has been given the gold medal. So this makes Cris. So this makes Cris, is it 3 or 4?
4 times.
This makes Cris a 4-time world champion arm wrestler. So. And that was our immediate connection, is just arm wrestling. But it's grown into much more than that, just kind of like Glenn McNeil and I's relationship. We've talked, like he lives in Connecticut, United States. This is the first time we've seen each other since January. And funny little story about January. This is a good theme about communication and miscommunication, I guess. When we were talking this whole time for over the last year and a half or so, when we first met in France, he said he was from Portland. And I was always assuming Portland, Oregon. So Nasty and I go to Connecticut for a job there, and we're visiting our friends that live in Connecticut. And the next day, we're going to Oregon, Portland, Oregon, for a job there. So I message Cris and say, hey, Cris, we're heading over to Portland in a couple days. Maybe we can hook up for coffee or something like that. And it turns out Cris lives in Portland, Connecticut. Like, I was like 20 kilometers away from where he was for a full week and thought he was 4,000 kilometers away in Portland, Oregon. So through the process, the process of miscommunication and communication, we figure out, dude, you're only like 5 minutes away from me. And I'm like, oh, let's hook up, brother. So it turned out he was working at the time. So he hooked me up with his arm wrestling club. I went and had a great practice with his guys down at the dungeon, they call it. And then he met us, Nasty and I, and Jenny, his girlfriend. They met us at our hotel room. And we spent at least 3.5 hours just conversing and communicating. And the stories he was telling Nasty and I, we kept on looking at each other like, holy shit, wow, wow, wow. Like, this is crazy stuff. And all the things he was saying, it reminded us of the conference theme, because we were just starting to really, really plan for the conference. And me and Nasty look at each other, and we basically said at the same time, this guy has to be our keynote speaker at this conference based on communication, healthy communication. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce my good friend, Cris Lacko, and just trust me, guys, he's going to blow the doors off this place.
July 9th, 2018. The Drug Enforcement Agency was hot on my ass. The IRS was confiscating my paychecks. I owed multiple drug dealers thousands of dollars. I had hits on me. My family loved me so much that they had to let me go. I had no money, no food. My friends I grew up with stopped picking up the phone. I was a full-blown drug addict and alcoholic. How did we get here? Where are we today? Where are we going next? I'd love to answer all those questions for you over the next 45 minutes or so. We'll start off my story. I was born and raised in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Not the nicest section of the city. I didn't have everything I wanted growing up, but in hindsight, I feel like I had everything I needed. A lot of violence in my household growing up. I love my parents very much. My mother's a nurse, my father's a helicopter technician. I have an older sister, Shannon. My mother was going through a lot of depression issues. My father was an alcoholic. So as much violence as there was a lot of love for me and my sister. My father lost his battle with cirrhosis 8 months ago yesterday. So my father died from cirrhosis, his father died from cirrhosis, and his father died from cirrhosis. The line stops right here. Just for today, I'm not picking up. So growing up around the age of 8, I started losing my hearing. And from a young age, I became a master lip reader. My communication was solely on the lips. So you can imagine how much fun I had when face mask came out. I was reading eyebrows and cheekbones for 2 years. But I didn't pick up, so I pick it anyway. So growing up in 8th grade, my loving parents got me my first set of hearing aids. I was so stoked to go to school and try these things out. And they also got me a box that I put in my pocket with a cord around my neck. So I go to school and I'm all stoked, and to my surprise, I became the butt of all jokes. Kids were kids, you know. They were strangling me with the cord. They were taking my hearing aids out, throwing them in the trash can, hiding them on me. From a young age, I always felt less than. I desperately wanted to be like the other kids at school. It just wasn't meant to be. I feel like bullying is a form of unhealthy communication. And just like love, hate is a universal language. I think there's also, like hazing, there's fun hazing, and it can get out of control. So me, growing up in school, you know, I sat alone in the bus, I sat alone in my classes, I sat alone in the cafeteria. People are throwing stuff at me all now. All these things became a value add in my life later on. But at the time, it was tough. And God also gifted me with acne, I had braces, I had a red afro, a toothpick thin. I also had something called gynecomastia, which some people know as moobs or man-hooters or whatever you want to call them. I had them. So people were twisting me, taking my hearing aids off. To this day, I have actually had 6 breast reduction surgeries. That's more than Pamela frickin' Anderson had. You can't tell today, but growing up, it was a nightmare. And every day, I came home to my poor loving parents just crying every day for years and years and years. So I had to find an outlet. We all need an outlet in life, something to keep us going. I knew I couldn't do a team sport. I didn't know what the coaches were yelling at me. I couldn't make out what the teammates wanted from me. I had to do something a little bit more independent. So I picked up my first skateboard, and this became my magnificent obsession. From the age of 8 to 15, all my friends were meeting girls and going on dates and going to parties. I was just completely honed in on this new thing. At the age of 15, we got our first 4 international sponsors, starting winning a lot of contests up and down the east coast of the US. Contests aren't like today with Dew Tour and X Games and millions of dollars. Nobody gave a crap about them in the 90s, but it was enough to get UPS to my house every month, dropping off free decks, bearings, grip tape. So kids in school found out about this, and they started hanging out with me so I'd give them free stuff. They were using me for gear. I didn't care. I desperately wanted that void in my heart filled. So I was hooking everybody up with free stuff, and I got invited to my first party at 15, where I got drunk and I smoked weed for the first time. Now, in hindsight, I'd like to think I had fun. Most people can have a few drinks, have a couple of joints, enjoy life. Me, I found a way to hide. I knew from the first time I got messed up that I could sweep all my insecurities and low self-esteem under a carpet of booze and weed. In the beginning, it was a weekend thing, and the more it progressed, I left high school and I was introduced to day drinking. Woo. So that became my new magnificent obsession. My skateboarding started going downhill, but I was still functional, and I didn't believe anything about it. In May of 2001, I began my career building helicopters, which I still have to this day. I'm very proud of it. I love being a tradesman. Sometime after that, the drinking started progressing. I would wake up mornings shaking, just not knowing what was going on. And I was getting into a lot of fights. I was blowing some steam from all my insecurities, was what I was doing. I became a bully. So all that came to a halt on September 7th, 2003. It was a Sunday night. I was at a bar in Oxford, Connecticut. There was a dispute over the high-stakes pool game, so the whole bar broke out into a brawl. I was sitting at the bar just talking. I get a tap on my shoulder. I turn around, bam! And I get a bottle broken over my head. And whatever's left of the bottle, I got stabbed 3 times to the left side of my face. He took most of my eardrum out. And you should have seen that guy. But that's not the point. That's not. That's not. So an ambulance found me in a prickle bush on the side of the building sometime later. I remember being in the ambulance. I don't remember being scared or in any pain. I do remember everything was hazy white around the corners, and there was this big guy rubbing these paddles. Cris, stay awake, stay awake. He knew my name was Cris. I woke up about 3 days later from a coma in Waterbury Hospital, and I noticed 2 things as soon as I woke up. The first thing I noticed was I couldn't hear anything. I had 80% hearing loss my whole life. After he took my eardrum out, I had about 98% hearing loss. The second thing I noticed was, I didn't seem to give a damn about it. And that was my introduction to a morphine drip. And the hospital sent me home with painkillers. And my good buddy Tom comes over. He says, Cris, whoa, take out 3 or 4 of these with a drink, you'll feel good. I says, I don't know, Tom. It says take one every 4 to 5 hours. So I took his suggestion. And just like when I was 15, at 23, I had found my answer. Now I don't have to deal with nothing with my hearing. I can just absorb these things in my body and just float all for the rest of my life. Back in 2003, I was doctor shopping, conning all these different doctors, going to the pharmacy 27 days early to get my script. Where's my script? So doctors started cutting me off. I had to go to the streets. Now, this is not something that I signed up for. I had an awesome career. I was over drinking, but this is something that spiraled so fast out of control. And some people maybe hear my story and be like, this guy was doing all this and he's building helicopters? I'm never going to fly again. But I'll tell you what, addicts and alcoholics are very intelligent people. We would do whatever it takes to get our fix. I was getting all my work done. I was getting no write-ups or MRBs. Inspection, I had a good report with. Quality control, like my work. I was just hair-trigger temper. Everybody had to walk on eggshells around Cris. There was no smiling. There was no joy in my life. So when the doctor cut me off, I started going to the streets. And then the pills got too expensive, so I was introduced to heroin for a financial investment to save some money. After about 6 months in that, I started bringing in cocaine into the mix. When you speedball a stimulant and a depressant like that, our hearts double their size to pump the added blood. So I was walking around with a heart attack basically every day. But I said I'll never smoke crack because that's stuff for bums. I'm not touching that. So I started smoking crack. and life went straight downhill. Never have I ever felt a pull on my life as powerful as crack cocaine. So things got really bad. So I decided in April of 2011, I'm going to go to rehab to win my family back and shut them up. I'm going to go to rehab to try to win my girlfriend at the time that I lost. I'm going to do it for them. So I flew down to Jacksonville, Florida, because I figured the further away we run from our problems, the better off we'll be. But I quickly realized no matter how far we run, we have to bring ourselves with us. So for 36 days of rehab, they said, Cris, no drinking, 90 meetings in 90 days. I said, no. I got this. On willpower alone. I'll show you. I don't need any of the meetings. So after 36 days of rehab, I felt great. My God. I felt so good I got drunk on the plane ride home. What? The nightmare's over. No meetings, no step work, no sponsor. I'm going to do this on my own. So I get to JFK Airport. My family's mortified to see me drunk. And I'm like, what? I'm off all hardcore drugs. Can't you see I'm fine? Oh, Cris is fine again. So the day I get home, I decided I'm going to go to my dealer's house just to show him how good I'm doing. What could possibly go wrong? Within 5 minutes, I was railing that first pill. Some of us may have been through it or know somebody what it feels like when someone relapsed. I knew immediately that I could no longer look anybody in the eyes. I knew from my first line that my life was a lie all over again. And 24 hours out of rehab, I was back in $1,000 a week addiction. And when we're out there messing around with this stuff, and we're hustling every day, there's no days off. This is a full-time job with unlimited overtime. Things got bad fast. Within a week, I moved into my drug dealer's crawl space in his attic in Waterbury, Connecticut, in the slums. I was sleeping on a twin-size box spring, not a mattress, a box spring. Twin size, I'm 6'2". I would have newspapers I'd lay down for a blanket. I had empty gallons of milk in case I had to go to the bathroom next to me. I would go weeks without shaving and showering. I became this thing. I remember I needed more money, so I claimed 10 children on my taxes for 9 years. The IRS, they'll never get me, you punks. They got me. My ex-girlfriend's grandmother passed away, so I thought I'd be a good guy and help him clean out the house. So I went there and I stole all of her medication and booze, obviously. But I also stole her life alert necklace. And I called them up and I recalibrated it to my name and address. Because I was absolutely sure I was going to die any day at that point. Things got so bad. I remember on July 8th, 2018, the day before this photo, a guy named Randy, who I avoided like the bubonic plague at work. I knew he had 3+ decades sober. I always avoided him. He caught me in the hall one day. And he goes, Cris, how are you? I said, well, I'm good. I'm smoking a little less crack now, you know. And Randy looked me right in the eyes. And he asked me 3 words that shut down my entire 20-year facade. He looked at me in the eyes, and he said, are you happy? And that was it. I was so unhappy. I was so broken. I had nothing left to live for. So I decided that night that I wrote a note to my mother, my father, my sister and niece, letting them know how sorry I am for what I'm about to do tonight. This does not reflect on how you raised me in any way. I love you so much, and I'll see you on the other side. So I taped it to the doors at midnight, the night before this photo, and I drove to the Route 84 bridge on the Newtown-Southbury line. I stood up on the side of the bridge, and I tied a cinder block to each ankle. I remember standing up there, and like Craig spoke yesterday, I definitely did not want to die, but I was done living. So I tied the blocks to my ankle, and I can hear horns honking behind me. I'm crying profusely. I'm taking my last hit of crack. I just put my hands out, and I start moving forward. And 2 arms came from behind and threw me on my back. It was an off-duty state trooper. I didn't hear him. He punched me. Surprise, big surprise. So as I lay on my back in this bridge, I think in medical terms, I was hysterical. I was crying so hard, and he unties my ankles, and at some point, I blurted out my grandfather's name. My grandfather, Ed, was the former commissioner of Connecticut State Police. So he puts me in the back seat of a Ford Taurus, and he brings me to this diner in Newtown, Connecticut at 1 in the morning, buys me breakfast. I'm just crying in this food, telling him my story. And he goes, listen, Cris, I'm not going to lock you up, but here's my name and phone number. You got 24 hours to go back to rehab. I'm thinking, rehab, it doesn't work. But I didn't want to go back to jail. I went to jail a couple of times over the 20 years, nothing long term, but enough to know that I didn't like it in there. So he dropped me off at my house at 2 in the morning. He leaves, and I steal my roommate's car. I take all the notes off my family doors, and I drive back home. At this day, it was 1:30 p.m., Monday, July 9th, 2018. I looked in the mirror. I think maybe yourself or somebody you know, we get to a point in life, possibly, where we look in the mirror, we don't know what we're looking at. I didn't know who this person was. But I did know that everybody's worth another chance. I thought to myself, how many of us know somebody or love somebody who's lost their battle with alcohol and addiction? But we're still here. If we're breathing, we have another chance. So on this day, I surrendered. And I decided that I want to communicate to the world a whole new transformation. I wanted to find out how these people stayed sober. So I got dropped off to detox this day, and I took my last hit of crack and my last swig of whiskey in the back seat of my stepmother's Explorer, and I held it up and I said, to the death of fun. Because in my mind, there is no way I'm going to enjoy my life without drinking and using. Like, how am I going to go to a wedding and not do blow? Or how am I going to go to a funeral and not drink with the guys in the parking lot? I couldn't understand how people had the urges lifted because I didn't know about Just for Today. I woke up my first morning in detox, covered in my own vomit, feces, and urine, and I could not stand up off the bed. I could not get up physically. So 2 little old ladies that worked in the detox department picked me off the bed, and they dragged me to the shower like that. That was my spiritual awakening. I realized I spent $1,000 a week for 18 years to look and feel like that. I haven't spent a penny in 2,308 days, and I'm on top of the freaking world. So for me, it was a light switch moment. And immediately after I bathed off, I had everybody in my unit doing push-ups, sit-ups, and lateral raises with the kitchen chairs. The staff is like, what do you do? I don't know. I got to find a new way to live. We had people throwing up in buckets. 10 more, 10 more, 10 more, 10 more. So after a week, they sent me to rehab. And when I get to rehab, they start talking about God and higher power. And I was like, no. Just tell me how to get off drugs and alcohol, and let me get the hell out of here. Because at that point in my life, anytime I heard someone talk about God or higher power, I thought everybody else knew what was going on. And I was just over here in the corner. What I didn't know at the time is that you cannot have a wrong higher power. My first night in rehab, they left a book open in the lobby. And it was a story about these 10 athletes training for the Olympics in the 1950s, 300-meter dash. So doctors came in, timed them, and then gave them all performance-enhancing pills. steroids. So the doctors come back 4 months later, timed all 10 of them. All 10 ran significantly faster times. No surprise, right? They're on steroids. There was nothing in the pills. They were placebos. And I go, holy, that's faith. That's your brain convincing your body, with these pills you just put in your mouth, I'm going to propel you to a whole new level. We can communicate our own biology and make ourselves feel stronger, and we get stronger. So I started letting go of the reins at this point. I said, all right, let me see what's going on with this higher power stuff. So my first night in rehab, I decided I'm going to shave my mohawk off in front of my roommate. And I do not recommend mocking your higher power, but I shaved it off. I was like, all right, show me something. The next day, we went hiking at Mohawk Mountain. No, that's got to be a coincidence. A day or two later, I get a new roommate named Andrew from New Jersey. Andrew brought in a book on how to learn ASL. I never learned sign at that point in my life. I said, bro, are you deaf? He said, no, I just wanted to learn something while I was here. You know? All right, that's got to be a coincidence too. It was a day or two later, the CEO of the rehab I was at, Jerry, pulled me aside in the hallway and said, Chris, I want you to come to my office. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. So he sits me down and he said, Chris, I just want to let you know I was there that night with you. Cool. What night? He said, September 7th, 2003. I was the EMT in the ambulance. I rubbed those paddles and brought you back to life. No. 15 years to the week. This dude saved my life the second time. And I said, that's it. That is it. There is no way the one time I completely surrendered myself to this higher power and all these coincidences, I do not believe in coincidences. It's fate. It's miracles that we're all still here after everything we've been through. So I started looking at things differently my last week in rehab before I left. I said, all right, you get a seed this big, and it turns into a 60-foot tree. Explain that to me. You get a sperm and an egg invisible to the naked eye, and it turns into Shaquille O'Neal, 7'3", 300 pounds of muscle. Explain that to me. The moon changes tides in the ocean. These things we can't do. This is a power greater than ourselves. All we need to know is to get our foot in the door and say, okay, we're not alone. There's something way bigger out there watching over us. So I left rehab on a tunnel vision of recovery. I took the suggestions. I did 93 meetings in 90 days. I found a sponsor. My sponsor is Randy, the day at work who approached me the day before I surrendered. I said, Randy, will you be my sponsor? He said, we got some work to do. Okay. So I did everything, my whole first year of recovery. The only thing I could tell my sponsor was, okay, Chris, go to this meeting. Okay. Chris, take this commitment. Okay. Chris, go to this AA dance. Okay. Chris, go to this recovery. All things I would have said no to. But I took them, and I started growing through the system. I wanted to get in shape. I was so tired of feeling and looking like this. So Randy's like, all right, write down what you eat. I said, okay, White Castle cheeseburgers, Pepsi Cola. He said, Chris, you're pumping 87 octane in a Ferrari. You're going to blow the motor. Put the good fuel in, and you perform better. So for the last 6 years and 2 months, I've been on a regimented meal plan, which I failed miserably the last 2 days. I drink a gallon of water a day. And I wanted to get in shape. I said, you know what, Randy? Maybe I'll join the gym Monday. Maybe Monday I'll go to the gym. And Randy told me the road to someday leads to the town of nowhere. We don't have to wait until our bills are in order or our family gets back together. We can draw the line in the sand right where we sit and say, I refuse to live like this anymore. So I started training. I started setting goals. I think in life, the best way of communication to the outside world is by setting goals and upping our game. Randy started helping me by saying, Cris, chin up, shoulders back. We get to present to the world, communicate, this is how much I care about myself. So I started doing things, I started setting goals. I think it's important to set goals, something very specific, because you won't see a ship in the middle of the ocean without a compass. It'll just drift aimlessly for years. But if we set a goal, come hell or high water, so help me God, I will stop at nothing. The same desperation I used to get my fix, and I would do anything to get my fix. If we can convert that over to this goal, no human on earth will stop that. And if we start a goal, we don't have to know what we're doing. We just have to want it. So my first goal was to start my own clothing brand. I knew nothing about clothes, even less about running a company, so I started SoberHigh. I had to learn how to do a website, an LLC, business checking account, tax numbers. I'm a recovering junkie. I don't know any of this stuff. But when we start a goal, we're going to see people that have more connections than us, have more money than us, more experience than us. If we want it more than them, it's over. Nobody can touch that. So I ran SoberHigh for 5 years. It's been sold to 7 different countries. It's been Australia, Denmark, Switzerland, Sweden, Germany, all over the US. And I still have no idea what I'm doing. It's amazing now, because SoberHigh, you know how much money I made with SoberHigh? Probably like negative $2,200. I make my money building helicopters, but this was just something to keep me busy. And just yesterday, I was in the gym downstairs, and I'm wearing my sleeveless SoberHigh. Me and Jenny are working out. And a dude who's not in this group came up to Jenny and I, he goes, hey, he gave me a thumbs up. I'm like, oh yeah, you in recovery? He goes, yeah, I'm 5 months sober today. Whoa. So I gave him a hug, I took a picture with him. 5 minutes later, after we leave the gym, he found me on social media, and now we're talking. We're keeping tabs with each other. That's why I started this. I don't care about the money. There are some people in this world that are so poor, all they have is money. I would never want to live like that. You got a mansion and a new Maserati and you're freaking miserable? No. I'll live my life paycheck to paycheck and thrive. So now, that's why I started the company. I go to the supermarket, I go to the bank, someone, hey, my sister's struggling, or my mother's in recovery. There's no greater high than watching someone else find their way out of this. I wanted to get stronger. I started signing up for strongman tournaments. My third one was last October 23rd. And we became the Connecticut Viking Classic Strongman champions, light heavyweight. I tried powerlifting. I never knew how to do it, but I found my name and I paid the fee. Oh my God, I got to do this freaking thing now. So I hit my goal. I did a 1,020-pound 3-lift total last February. Got off. It's so cool to set these goals because we all want to be 90 years old in a rocking chair one day and say, okay, I tried that. I've been there, traveled there, did that. We don't have to know what we're doing. It's awesome to not be afraid to suck at something new. Just try it. Everybody's thinking about signing your name, pay the fee. One thing I always loved, though, like Dan spoke about, was arm wrestling. I would watch it on the TNN network after the fishing shows back in the 90s. Even when I was using, I was saying, I'm going to do that one day. Months become years, years become decades, and we're out there hustling in the streets, life passes by, but now we all have another chance. So yeah, all these things led up to now, as of 2 days ago, 4 world championships and a third of the nationals in the US. When we got to the nationals, there were 136 pullers, I believe. Who was ranked at the bottom of the list? This recovering junkie from Connecticut. Nobody worried about that kid. He's only been pulling 2.5 years. Don't worry about him. But 2 things can happen when we're backed in a corner in life. One, we can believe the haters and say, you know what, maybe we're not supposed to be here. Maybe they're right. Or two, they're going to remember us. So I chose number 2. And that's what got us right here. We got number 3 in the United States national championship here. So I've also been taking acting classes. Acting is a very healthy form of communication. We get to vent out how we feel without actually living it. After 4 years of classes, I've been doing auditioning a lot lately. I want to be the first. No, forget that. I don't want to be. I am going to be the first leading role in a show with a cochlear implant. I got this cochlear implant turned on 2.5 years ago. It's amazing, because the good news is I get to hear everybody now. The bad news is I have to listen to you guys now. Awesome things to be able to communicate with everybody openly now. My work life, my home life. There are some things that have been so incredible. When I got this turned on, I went home that day and I put some food in the microwave, I'm cooking. All of a sudden, the carbon dioxide detector started going off. I'm like, what are the chances? Thank God I have this thing on. So I called the fire department, they come up, they cordon off the house, they're doing the inspections. Did you guys know the microwave beeps when the food's ready? I can spell anything. I can't pronounce a damn thing. After a meeting one time, my friend said, Chris, let's go to the movies. I said, oh, it's a Sunday. We'll go to the Sunday Manatee. Like, bro, you want to watch a whale? I'm like, no, the Sunday Manatee. They're like, bro, matinee. Oh, okay. I threw something at my friend at work on break outside and hit him in the eye. And I was like, oh, crap, I hope I didn't, mess up your retina. And he goes, who the hell's retina? Retina. Oh, okay. There's so many awesome things in my life that have happened because of recovery and hearing things now. I was reached out by a private detective after speaking in a prison 2 years ago in Massachusetts. This lady came up to me and said, Chris, we have a cold case going on. Would you come in and read lips for the video? And I'm like, I don't want to get involved in any court cases. They're like, no, just let us know what you see and we'll bring in a speech pathologist to verify it. I'm like, I don't know. And she said, well, what if you told you it was a preteen girl who was brutally beaten? All right, sign me up. So I go to this office, and the whole girl's family is there, and I'm like, oh, no. So I said, don't tell me anything about the case, just put me in the room. So after 7 minutes of footage, I caught one sentence. And I opened the door, and I said, does the name Antonio ring a bell? What did she say? So I told him the one sentence, and they ended up extraditing the dude up from down south, and he got 4 years. For 20 years, I took drugs and drank because I was ashamed of my disability, my impairment. But these days, having you guys in my life in recovery, it's become a superpower. It's our perspective on things that counts. 2 Thursdays ago, I was reached out by a prominent attorney in New York City who's also a documentarian. He said, Chris, I have this footage, but I called the top audiologist in the area, and I asked her, who's your best lip reader? She goes, you got to talk to Chris Lacko in Connecticut. So this dude emailed me and said, Chris, I have a minute-long video. Will you read the lips? We'll compensate you for your time. I'm like, all right, send it my way. The video was from Sharon Tate, an international murder from 1968 from the Manson family. It was the last known footage of her. Her family's been waiting 54 years to find out what she says. So after a week and a half, I got about 60% of it down. I haven't relayed it to the family yet, but it's absolutely shocking to be able to communicate with the outside world through my lip reading. There's so many different forms of communication out there besides just talking and listening. There are some awesome things in life that have happened to me, and I've been able to communicate through healing as well. My friend ordered a pizza delivered to the house last summer. When the doorbell rang, he was in the bathroom, so I went to the door to get to the pizza. I get to the door, and there was John. This guy, John, literally went to middle school for 4 years and high school for 4 years just to make my life a living hell. For 23 years after high school, I dreamt of getting revenge on this man. Public stoning, Chinese water torture, you name it, I wanted all of it done to this guy. So he rings the doorbell, and I see him, and he's sick. He's pale white, sweating, shaking. And I go, hey, John, how are you? And I shook his hand, and I gave him the best 4-time world champion IFA handshake. It sounded like a bag of Doritos cracking when A month later, I get a text through Facebook. I am not friends with this dude on Facebook. It's from John. Cris, I think I have a problem. I said, well, people who don't have a problem don't think they have a problem. I picked him up the next night and brought him to his first meeting to help him try to save his life. Never, 6.5 years ago, would I have ever dreamt of this nightmare, but it's become a dream. I have a sponsee of my own in the program now, Garrett. Garrett has 5 years and 1 month sober with me. In that time, he's dropped 117 pounds, got a career at the post office, became postmaster general in 2 years, which from what I was told is nearly impossible, bought a house, got married, had his first kid, all with us looking from the outside in. I have done every drug and drink on the planet. There is no high in the world better than watching someone else strive in their lives and being able to give back. That's my form of communication now, is to give back to others. So, I challenge anybody to leave here today and throw a compliment to somebody. I like your hat. That's cool. I love the hoodie. Awesome. Try it. It's overlooked a lot. Because 2 things can happen when you throw a compliment out. First, someone could be having one of the worst days of their life. Hey, I like your hair. I like your jacket. Oh, thanks. And it can bring them from here to here, and it will bring us from here to here to be able to do that. In August of 2000, I remember the exact day, I was at the lowest point in my life, self-esteem-wise, and a girl named Kenna came up to my car at Dunkin' Donuts, and she came up to me and said, hi, Cris, you have perfect eyebrows. I don't know where it came from, but here we are 24 years and 3 months later talking about this. She brought me from here to here. She didn't have to do that. I ended up going to the movies with my friends after a meeting one night. They said, Cris, come to a movie. I said, I don't want to go to the movie. I can't hear what's going on. They said, they said before I had the implant. I'm not going, come to the movie. I am not going to these movies. So I go to the movies. And I'm sitting there during the previews, right? And all the previews are on, and my heart is thumping. I'm sweating. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to be here. So one of the dudes, we're in a group of 8 of us, one of them gets up to go to the bathroom. And he comes back, and he plugs in this device to the cup holder with a cable that connects to a box with subtitles. This group called that theater a week before to arrange that box for me. I would never forget that because they didn't have to do that. It would have been easier to not. And because of you guys and all these people that made it this far in my life, today I'm going to remain teachable. I'm going to take suggestions, and I'm going to give back in any way I possibly can. So if anybody ever wants to contact me about anything in life, please write these down. Do not call. That would be the shortest phone call of your life. But please reach out, and thanks for having me, everybody. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
That was awesome. Thank you, brother.